Hello, hello. I think
We are
everything
live.
looks good. We are live once again.
Amazing.
I know.
Back in
Episode
action.
maybe, I don't know, nine, eight, something like that.
Not even sure what episode anymore, eh?
I don't know, man. That's true success, though. If you think about it, losing count. If you keep count, you're not doing it right. We just do so much of this. We put out so much content, top quality content. We just
Oh
forget
my
about it.
goodness. Top
Here we are.
quality content. Is that what you're considering this
Yup, yup. Top quality. My half, at least. The right half
to?
of the screen is top quality. It's like driving your Lamborghini to like a Kmart.
You just kind of take it and run with it, eh?
Mm-hmm. But
Have a
we are
look.
here again. Welcome everyone to Babbling Over Borders. I'm Drake from America.
America. I'm
America.
Anthony from Canada.
Hello, hello.
And
Back
this
at
is
it.
episode Who Knows. This is hilarious. I love how you don't even know what episode it is. Mind you,
Yeah, I
again,
don't know.
irrelevant. Who cares?
Exactly,
Whatever.
right? We just pump it out. Easy.
So, it's funny talking about relevant things, and we actually happened to catch a pretty relevant topic last week. I will say, I think we
Right? I think that's the first time we actually dove into recent events. There's
we,
some
we
stuff that
caught
happened
it,
this week too, though, right?
yeah, but I feel like we actually caught it ahead of the game if you consider everything that happened up until this week. You know what I mean? It's been pretty wild, that whole
That is
story.
true.
Um, But that actually brings me to a little bit what I want to talk about. So obviously we talked about that controversy last week. There was another controversy going on that I'm definitely curious your freedoms about, being from America and freedom. You
Something
know,
like
I
that, yeah.
yeah, I'm definitely curious your opinions on this whole trucker rally, convoy, protest,
Mm-hmm.
fringe minority group, white supremacists, whatever term you want to call them.
Something
I
like
am
that.
curious your ideas and opinions on that whole trucker movement going on.
So I'll be honest. I don't know about it. Like I know obviously that it's happening, but all in all, I really do not know like details of it. I've learned more from our conversation than anything else. It's not. It doesn't seem to be very popular here on social media, at least, where I get all my information from. Like, it's not a big thing. It's like very ever so slightly here and there. You'll see something, right? But
Huh.
it seems to be a lot more prevalent up there because I have other friends in Canada that have talked to me about it and like brought it up. But I don't know that much about it.
Okay, so what are your friends telling you about it? And I am a little curious.
See, I don't even think. I mean, the people I've talked to don't even really have that much of an opinion because obviously they're not truckers, and like it's just something that's happening, right? But I don't know. I mean, it's over the regulations of like border control, pretty much, right? Like shutting down highway systems. So I guess it doesn't really affect us that much as it does you guys. All in all, because we don't have a lot of regulations that I mean, we're not importing a lot from Canada. If anything, we're exporting. So like I'm sure it does affect companies, but like a day to day, it just
Can you
doesn't.
just
I don't
repeat
know.
that? Hold on. Just repeat that last statement for me one more time.
It's affecting big companies.
No,
We don't import that much from you. We export more.
I think if I'm not mistaken, we're like the biggest trade partners. Like we just trade back and forth and back and forth.
No, I mean I'm sure we do. I'm just saying like it's not detrimental like a lot of the stuff we're getting right now, especially it being winter. I mean, what are we really bringing? Not that I know of. Nothing that affects me or like the average American that much, right?
I see, and I think that's where a lot of people. And maybe I'm wrong on this. I very well could be right. But if I'm not mistaken, everything that we own, that you're touching and seeing and listening to or whatever, like even the vehicle, if you're driving, in a vehicle listening, right? Like that came in on a truck. It's touched a
No,
truck
I'm
at some
sure. No,
point.
I agree. But that's what I'm saying. Like the regulations are just about the border, no? So like the main problem people are having are crossing the US Canada border because of the Canadian regulations, right?
Yeah, but it's the U.S. regulations too. If I'm not, and again, I could be wrong. You hear, bits and pieces through the grapevine, and you're trying to put somewhat of a story together. And
Mhm.
again, I'm really not sure the whole story, right? Um, but yeah, obviously, due to mandates and lovely regulations, truckers weren't going to be able to travel between the countries unless they um, had their lovely passport or proof of passport.
See, I think that's
And
the thing. That's the Canadian part. I mean, that's the reason I think they're doing it in Canada, right? Like in Ottawa. That's why they're not protesting here in the States because it's more or less a Canadian like blockade than the US.
and so again, from my understanding, I'm not fully sure if this is true or not. Supposedly, yes, Trudeau lobbied the US government to have you guys implement the same thing, though. So you guys have the same rules and
Mm.
regulations, even coming down, but
See, I think
they
they're a
were
lot stricter within Canada, no? Like even provincial regulations, right?
provincial. Yes, maybe.
Because I know like freedom
Provincial.
to travel, I don't know,
Provincial.
provincial, provincial, province like. I don't know, bro. I think, I mean, we can travel between states freely. I know that. Perfect. There's no regulations to travel between states. So I don't know how it is in Canada, regulation wise. But, I mean, there's obviously a reason they're protesting in Ottawa instead of in wherever in states.
Yeah, see, and it's funny. From what I heard this weekend, they actually took the protest, and they're protesting not just in Ottawa though. Like Alberta is protesting as well out there.
Mm-hmm.
They took to Toronto today or over this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. There's lots
Hmm.
happening there. It seems like there's on the media, you're told it's a small group of people with, a fringe minority or whatever. When you see videos from it, it doesn't look like it's a small group. I like from the
Yeah.
videos that I seen, it looks like there's like I seen one video and I would say there is easily 100 or more trucks there, right? And that's a huge difference from some of the numbers that you heard flying around. But this was in one quick video, and it looked like they were literally down the street of Ottawa. And
Hmm.
maybe
See, I
someone
haven't seen
seen.
anything. I mean, not in the same way that I see other stuff, right? Like I said, it's
Okay.
very minuscule. Like I've heard of it. Obviously, know like what's going on roughly. I know that it is going on. I wouldn't say I know what's going on specifically.
And that's I think my thing with it too, I really not sure the exact details. I don't know who specifically involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a big crowd from the videos that you can see. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like a small group of people. So it does look like there's more than a few trucks there. From the videos that I've seen over this weekend, it looks like there's still like the trucks, it looks like they've been parked there for like a couple days. Like there's snow around them, looks like nobody's really moving. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting. So I'm just I was curious, obviously, with America freedom.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, everything here, to my knowledge, is still running as it would,
Hmm.
regulation or not, in comparison, right? I don't know of anything. I know I can personally travel to any state freely. No proof of whatever. There's nothing stopping me.
So
Right.
I do know that they did that within Canada, and I'm really curious how that works in regards to one certain document. Says you're allowed to travel Canada freely. They did put in borders at within certain provinces. If I'm not mistaken, going out to the Maritimes, there was a border. Quebec had some crazy regulations. I don't think they had a border though, and like, no, they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't have because we ended up in Quebec by accident at one point. I ended up going up to Ottawa, and I all of a sudden was in Quebec, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm surprised that we're
Is there
actually allowed in
normally a
Quebec."
border? Like when you travel on freeways, there's nothing really. It's just a road with a sign that says "Welcome
Free
to
road.
Quebec."
Yeah, welcome to New
The same as
Brunswick.
it is
Welcome.
here, right? Because you've done a
Yeah,
lot of driving here, so it's the same difference.
yes, no difference. Welcome to Illinois. Welcome to
Mm-hmm.
Connecticut. Welcome to Colorado. That was an awesome
Mm-hmm.
trip. That was a
No.
long haul, though. That was a long haul.
Yeah, that's crazy. I could not drive that long.
That was
I mean, I guess I could, but I definitely would not want to ever, and under any circumstance. I mean, I made the ride. I was in the car from obviously Connecticut down to Georgia, but that was enough for me. I don't need any part of
oh
that. They
no,
invented planes
I
for a
see.
reason, right? Like,
No,
we have a
sir.
whole new
There's
way
a.
of transportation.
I'm telling you, there's a reason they call it a road trip. You have to have fun with it and enjoy it, and that is one
But how
thing.
much
Like,
are you personally
oh,
enjoying it on the way by yourself in a car for 25 hours? That can't be fun.
I love it. That is,
What do you love? What are you doing? You're just listening to music and driving in a straight line.
that is my peace and zen, and I'm excited
Bro,
that
I'm
I'm
doing the
going
same
to
thing on a
wherever I'm going.
plane, but it's so much faster. I get to my
You can't
destination
see
quicker.
anything.
Bro, I'm in the
You don't get
sky.
to
I can
experience.
see so much more.
You get to experience people on either side of you, like this.
No, I like looking
And
out the
I'll tell
window.
you,
You get to see clouds from above. Bro, that is the best feeling for me.
yeah,
That's
but
my favorite thing about flying.
after flying in a small plane and then flying on a massive like commercial plane,
Mm.
I you, again, there's a difference, right? It's no different than driving by yourself versus taking a train, right? Like on a train, that's a whole experience by itself, right? There's
I agree,
people
yeah.
and a vibe and blah blah blah. But I would way rather travel by myself. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, you got a carpool," and anybody that wants to come for a ride, hop in the car. You know what I mean? Especially
See,
if
I
I'm
think if
going
I
that
was
way.
with people, then the trip would be different and I could enjoy it more being with friends and having a good time. But that's with anything you do in life, right? Like if you're around people
Oh
that you
no.
enjoy being around, it's more fun. But by myself, like the way I look at it, if I take a car, let's say I drive to California and I'm going on vacation. I have a week of vacation, right? 1 week off work. And I'm like, I want to go to California. I can either A, drive, it takes me, what, 2 or 3 days, minimum 2 days, right? Just to get there. 2 days to get back. That's 4 days. Now I got 3 days left of actual vacation. Or I can fly, be there in 5 hours, right? So that's only really like half of one day wasted and then half of another. That leaves me six in my location.
So and to a certain extent I understand. And like Denver would have been one of those ones that might have been worth flying. The only problem is though is when I worked out gas to Denver and back and then time spent, right? Like it was actually cheaper because again,
But it couldn't have
airline is
been that much cheaper, right? Like it could not have been substantially enough. It would have to be night and day different for me to choose to drive, right? Because I moved from California back to here. And when I did, I had a
so
ton of stuff with me, I had a vehicle, and I did the math and looked at that. And it was more efficient for me to just fly, ship my car back over to the East Coast and do all that than it was for me to drive it. Because we debated driving. But when we looked at it, we could fit all our stuff into the car, right? And have it shipped. And then we could just fly. The car would already be there. We'd be set. So like it was expensive. It was more expensive than driving, but it was worth it to the point where I don't have to spend 2 or 3 days in a car driving across the country just to get to where I want to live. When I could do it all in one day.
yeah, but see, and I guess like I think about it very differently, right? Like I can understand a lot of people are in a rush to get to where they're going, and and I enjoy the travel. And a lot of the time when I worked out expenses, right, a lot of the shorter trips, like longer trips, again, I can understand, you know what I mean? Especially when you're
Like
talking.
when we went to Connecticut, I could see driving that. Right, it was what, like 10 hours, give or take. So I could see doing that. That is something I would drive. I would, well, if I was here, I might would fly, but I don't know. Tickets, I think, are also, you have to account tickets going from Canada into here are more expensive than vice versa, from my understanding.
It's yeah, and it's drastically more expensive for me to fly, and that's the biggest reason why I took a vehicle the majority of the time, right? Like it was just so much cheaper, and it was almost the price to drive to a majority of these places than it would be to. But and you have to remember too, though, once you've got to wherever you're going. If you don't have a vehicle, you then need to pay to get around.
No, yeah, I agree
Or
with that. It is definitely beneficial to have a vehicle. Like, I mean, you have to either anytime we met outside of here, or very close. I guess there wasn't too many times where we were like came in separate those far. I guess Texas would really be the only one where we
and
came in from like drastically different spots. And I didn't have a car in Texas, so I Ubered. But then
and
again,
me
I was only there for a weekend, so it was only a few Ubers, like 30 or $40 worth of Uber. It was still way more worth it for me to fly out there than to drive.
and you know what though? Like again, I remember going to Texas. That was the only downfall to being in Texas. Was not I didn't have a vehicle
Oh,
again,
because
and
you
I was well
flew,
taken care of.
right? You guys
I was
flew.
well taken care of. I got picked up at the airport. I had everything taken care of for me. It was absolutely ridiculous. The
Hmm.
people treated me absolutely like gold out there. It was unbelievable. The people were amazing. An amazing experience. It was hot,
God, I
but
hated it. I was just telling someone about that the other day. I was because it was someone that I met that had traveled a lot, and I asked them, "What's your least favorite and your favorite place you've been to?" And they asked me, and I was like, "Texas, bro. I hated it. I hated like being like the trip itself was so much fun, right? I had a blast with people and where I was,
yeah.
but dear God, whenever I stepped out of that airport at like 10 p.m., I told them it was like swimming in a kiddie pool in hell. It was terrible. I hated it. There's nothing worse.
That was probably and like even going to Dominican, that was probably some of the craziest weather. Like it was a whole new kind of hot that I had never really experienced before. And it
Hmm.
was like you walked outside and it was like being hit by a wave of like hot sauna. Like
It was
yeah, it
literally
was
like you
bad.
were in a sauna for 48 hours. Like,
Yeah.
I hate being in a sauna for 40 seconds. Right? I don't like the humidity. I don't need to be wet and hot. Right? What? You're just sweating. Like, I hate to sweat. So to think that people actually buy saunas, go to saunas, just to
Yeah,
sweat.
but
That's the whole purpose. You go in there and you just sweat for an hour. That sounds horrible. That's my personal hell. It's just saunas.
there was people there that were wearing pants. Like I had a friend that would only wear pants, and I was like, dude, we're in 100-degree weather and you're wearing pants. Like
You know what? That's a funny thing that you say that. I think most of the time I wear pants because the part of me that gets the hottest is my upper body, right? I'm also
you're
just
one of those
overweight, so it's
weirdos too.
probably just like
You are
not
one of those
helpful.
weirdos too
No,
that
it's the
doesn't wear.
upper body, like my bottom half of my body. Just like it might be hot, but like I can deal. It's not that big of a
I'm
difference
telling you,
between shorts
no,
and
there is a
pants.
massive difference between wearing shorts and pants, sir.
Not for me. It feels
You need
similar.
to find some new shorts. I'm not sure what kind of shorts
No,
you're
you're
looking
right, bro. I just want to cool off my calves. Nothing else above the calf. The waist to my knees, no, that's fine. That's always the same. But I want really cool calves. Like I don't care about that enough.
No, yes, sir. You need yes.
Plus,
There's
from
a
like a
whole
styling standpoint, you can like it just looks a lot better in pants. So like I just
a
dress around in that.
styling standpoint.
Yeah, like if I wear shorts all the time, it's harder to like match with stuff. Imagine if we both stood up right now. They saw. This is a waist and up podcast. But
Well,
yeah, I'm player man.
yeah,
Imagine if I went out in public looking like I do right now. You saw me before we started. Imagine I wear this in public. That's disgusting. Now imagine if
yeah,
I was
but
in pants. It's fine. It's great. Looks good.
yeah, but again, a shirt makes a big difference in appearance.
If I'm
I
wearing like
do
a
agree.
t-shirt or something, then I don't care, right? It's the same. It still looks fine. All I'm saying is like just in general. I mean, I don't base every decision off. Oh, I have to be stylish,
It
right?
is a little harder. Yeah, but and again, you can get some pretty fancy dress pants now. Like they've have a whole like if you really are that concerned about fashion and what you look like, sir, and that's one thing I've never really been concerned about. But like they
Look,
have
we've
that.
talked about networking before, so everywhere I go that I could possibly network, I like to look pretty decent, right? So if I'm going up
I
to the
I,
street to like a Walmart, then I don't care what I look like. But if I'm going to like
I
an event,
should take that into consideration. You know what I mean? I've thought about it, especially a little more recently under the circumstances. I'm not gonna lie. You know what I mean?
you need
Like
to look your
maybe,
best anytime you leave the house. But
well, yeah, like maybe I should actually, cut my hair and try and look and dress a little more appropriately and
yeah,
be a little more business like because I do believe I have some of that mentality, right? But I think a lot of it gets lost in appearance and you know those kind of things. And I do think the other thing too, as bad as this is to say, but obviously, like before, I was you're looked at as a smoker, so you're like, oh, you're a dumb smoker, right? Like he's an idiot,
mm,
he smokes, he's killing himself, like he's obviously stupid. So then
yeah,
like you get all that and then all of a sudden out like oh my god you're vaping like that stuff kills you you're an idiot even more like and so there's a whole
yeah.
nother stigma that's coming along with that right and unfortunately those are things that I appearance can't really change unfortunately so and
Just bad
I don't
stigmas.
know I've never been one to like appear I don't know you know what I mean like it's not something I focus on, to be honest. I don't get up and go look at the mirror
I
half the
think
time.
I don't spend like ungodly times like obsessing over it. But like I said, if I'm going somewhere where I know that I could potentially meet people that could be a benefit in the future, then I'll dress decent.
Well, and a lot of the time we were traveling to obviously networking places. So, and
Mm.
maybe I should have done those things, cut my hair. Been a little more appropriate at times, but
That's fine. You're a
I.
foreigner. Your networking is already great with your accent, bro. See, I don't have that. I have to make up for it in clothing options. If I drop some roughs and A's, then maybe I could get like you. But I can't do that. God.
I don't know if well I don't know. You can call it the accent, I guess. We'll say it was the accent that got it
You're a
going.
novelty down here. They say, "Ooh, a Canadian." I just want to talk to him just to like see how he talks. Doesn't even matter what he's saying. I just want to hear it so I can tell my friends that I met a real one, that they actually exist. They are real. Oh my god.
Oh, no, I met so many people down there. It was wild. I had a lot of I was a
It's the same thing with Glenn, right? When Glenn came over, it does not matter. He could go completely naked. Doesn't make a difference. Once he says one word, they're like, ooh, international. Especially where we were, right? But that also plays a big factor. There was a lot of like B2B in the places we were. So obviously,
yeah,
anyone international, their first thought as a salesman is, ooh, international clients, right? And that
yeah,
extended reach, as opposed to someone, let's say you have a Texas accent and we're at a convention in Texas, they definitely would rather talk to the people that are flying in from around the world because A, they mean business, and B, it's just cool to have a bigger, like a longer reach, right?
well, and of course, yeah, but it's no different than us doing this, right? Like I think just having a conversation with someone from a different part of the world brings, you know what I mean? Like almost some excitement, right? Like what are your
No,
experiences? What are your views? What are your opinions? So, and actually we should bring that up for a minute. So, I think we're going to have to change um times for our show to get Australia on here only because there's a massive time difference there. Like it's like 12
mm-hmm.
hours or something ridiculous.
Yeah, it's very early
So,
right now.
yeah, unfortunately, when we did the time change here, he is like smack dab in the middle of his workday Monday.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
we had obviously talked about trying to get him on. I had suggested maybe we do Saturday at 7 or 8 p.m. and then that way it'll be Sunday morning ish for him, and everybody
Yeah,
should it should kind of flow and jive for everybody, and then we can get obviously a different view and opinion on. And I am still very curious about that. I do would love to have that, right? So,
I think it
and
wouldn't hurt
that's
to also possibly. I mean, we can like start a group chat, figure out times between my work, his time difference, his work, everything like
okay.
that. I think it might be cool to have like a bonus episode one week, like during the week. We could do it like on a Wednesday or Thursday if it would work for
Well,
him better, like at a different time. But I don't know. It just depends on his schedule, right? And mine.
okay. So yeah, and we can definitely do that. We'll sort all that out on the back end.
We'll figure
Throwing
it
that out there
out.
as we're
Yeah,
working
yeah.
on it. We're working on it. We have
Look,
some
speaking of international travel, couple points. A, I'm planning a trip up there in March. I'm thinking early
okay.
March. Does that work for you? We can obviously
Yeah.
go over like details off stream, but I'm thinking early March, like a Wednesday to Wednesday or Thursday to Thursday, something like that. I just have to look at tickets and like pretty much
I'll
what's
figure it out,
cheapest is
sir.
what I'm gonna book. And
Yeah.
then secondly, but that is
Hopefully
like
I'll
a
have a
month from
job by
now.
then.
Yeah, it's like a month from now. So I'm excited for that because I'm excited to actually leave the country. You're not gonna have a job. I'm not worried about that.
Stop this.
Look, here's the second thing. More travel news. You've said before that if we go to the UK, then you want to come. So let's go. There is a convention in May that David said should be really good and very big. And it's like, I think middle to end of May. I don't know, I'd have to look at the messages. But I'm planning a trip to the UK regardless in the summer. So, or, further out, like a few months out, sometime in the middle of the year. So, what do you think about that? Travel to the UK.
I, buddy, I better be working by the time you get down here for going to the UK. Let me tell you, I don't know how I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
make
I
this
mean, like I
work.
said, I am definitely not in a position to be buying plane tickets, but I have all those travel vouchers that I was telling you about. So I
Yeah.
got that sorted. So I have enough to go to Canada and the UK on those vouchers. So I'm using them, right? So I really won't have to spend a dime. Not really. I mean, just like basic stuff when I go both places. I already have obviously places up there, and then I already have places in the UK I can stay. So I'm not worried about really anything in terms of like a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it would be a lot different for you, obviously. Maybe not with stay, but with the flight at least. Mine's already
Yeah.
essentially been paid for a couple years ago. But
Yeah. No.
I
Flight
am
would
planning to go
be.
out there.
Hmm. I will see what I can farfanoodle, sir. I will. You give me a little bit of motivation like that too, and that definitely helps get the brain juices flowing on. Like, how
Yeah,
do
bro.
we
If I'm
make this
already
work?
going, then we can just go out there together. I plan on going to more northern England for most of my trip to stay with a friend up there in like a much smaller, like quaint village town. I don't know, bro. It's crazy. It looks like literally out of a movie. Like where
Really?
he lives is like a small like he lives beside a pub. Like it's like a strip you walk down, like brick roads. I don't know, dude. It looks crazy. I'll send you some pictures. I'll send you his Instagram. You can look at. He's a photographer also, so I want to go
Okay.
out there and like shoot some photo with him, see what he's
I
got
was
going
gonna
on.
say I seen some photos from even our buddy England that we had. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
like some photos that he's shown has been absolute. I'm like, just the architect and everything there is incredible, right? Like, I would love
Yeah,
to go visit and see, and that's the other thing I like about driving though too. Like, you get to see these things, like. You know what I mean? How many states have you been through? I bet you I've been through more states than you have. Well,
I don't
give
know.
or take.
I mean, I don't know. Close. I'd say it's pretty close. I've done a good bit of like traveling around, right? You've probably
No,
got
I
me
know.
beat in like pure like going through a state, right? Like just on a straight road, and then like you see some like cornfields and bushes. You're like, wow, this is America. So you probably have me beat on that American experience.
Bro, I'm in America.
I was saying
I'm
to this
not even
person the
in
other
Canada
day,
anymore.
there's only a couple major cities I want to visit in the U.S. left. Probably Seattle. I've never been out to Seattle. I'd like to visit it just to see, just to say I've been there. There's nothing really there. It's just a corner of the U.S. I've never been to, right? Something different. And then
No.
Boston. I really want to take a trip to Boston.
It's so random. Like
No,
out of all
Boston.
the
So it's
like
like it's just major cities. So like it may not be the same up there. It'd be the equivalent of you saying like you want to visit, I don't know, Vancouver and Toronto and what is it?
Va-
I don't know. Other like
Vancouver
major cities, right?
Vancouver's on an island out BC. So like I
Mm-hmm.
think it's little different. Like it's an island that's in Canada that's like the capital of the province,
Yeah,
right?
but
Like
like, what
there's
would you do out there? Just like kind of see it, right? It's just different
well,
than where
yeah,
you
but
are.
and again, I think there's a whole different like it's a different climate and you know what I mean? Like there's a whole different
Hmm.
vibe
I
going
mean,
on
that's
there.
why I want to go to these places. I mean, obviously, you know where I live, and it is substantially different in both Seattle and Boston. But I mean,
Yeah,
just in comparison, I've hit almost every other major city that's like spoken about. I mean, I've been to what Texas, I've been to Chicago, New York, up
yeah,
on
but
the east. I've been to a lot of places, California, all around there.
the other thing that is interesting about the US is you look at like obviously we're close to Atlanta, right? And you look at a place like Atlanta. We were even an hour or two outside Atlanta. There's you know what I mean? You're in the country, there's tons of trees, bush, fresh air, right?
I mean, I'm
Like
2 hours from Atlanta, and you've been to my house or my old house. Like you've been to my city, and you see
yeah.
that it's obviously substantially different from Atlanta.
Yeah,
And I'm
but
2 hours away.
even where you were before versus where you are now, where you are now is way more city than where you were before.
Oh yeah.
Right, and that's you know what I mean. Like I was thinking more of that city, like, and then you again you go into Atlanta, and Atlanta's like a whole gong show. Like that reminds me of the 401 in Toronto, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like it's cool. We visited, like let's go back out to the a little more
No, I agree.
less
I think
chaotic.
also when you go somewhere or when you're raised around something, it's a lot less appealing than to outsiders. So like let's say me going to Toronto is like a whole experience, right? Like I loved being in Toronto and like just seeing like shopping centers, and when we went to Toronto it was just cool for me to like walk around and just vibe, right? Whereas I would never do that in Atlanta. I have no appeal to Atlanta. I hate going down there, right? I go down there for concerts, or if I have something like I need to do in Atlanta, then I'll go. But other than that,
See,
I
and
have no
that's
interest.
yeah, you're crazy because again, we went and spent couple days in Atlanta and again without a vehicle, once your vehicle's parked and you don't have to worry about a vehicle and you can just walk, incredible. That's the same thing. Like
See, I
you
think that's
go
just
and
like the
vibe.
norm to me at this point, right? Like I used to live an hour from Atlanta, so I was down there, I guess, more often. But like school trips, stuff like that. I mean, it's the capital of Georgia, so going to school in Georgia, obviously, I went to Atlanta. So it was
Yeah,
just
but
like whatever. It's an hour away, a lot of
the
traffic.
Coca-Cola building is there.
Yeah, see stuff like that. I'm just like, I've been there, done that, whatever. It's more like a to me or to people that were raised in that general area. I think stuff like that is just more like field trip type of stuff. You know what I mean?
Well,
Anywhere where
especially
I
if you
went on
go
a field trip in middle school, I have no appeal to now. But I think that's just like a mental thing, right? Like if I went to a Coke museum in Toronto, I'd be like, "Wow, this is crazy." But then I'd go to the same thing in Georgia and be like, "I've been there. They took us there as a child, so like I'm an adult now. Why do I want to do the same thing as a middle schooler?" But I don't
yeah,
know.
but and I can relate to that because I think of places like we have the ROM here, obviously close in Toronto,
Mhm.
about an hour away, and that we went there on all kinds of school trips and excursions and all those things, and you hear of like people from all over the world going. Yes, you know what I mean. Like I don't know, it's like a science trip back in school. Like
Yeah,
it's I have
right.
no interest in that, and it's funny. Like there was definitely a big part of my life where I had no interest in that. I'm sure I would be a lot more interested in it now, right? But again, like those busy places that are filled with lots of people, I'm not. It's got to be a new experience if
See,
I'm
even
going
for
to do
me,
it, right?
Nashville, I'm about 2 hours from Nashville as well. I'm right between Nashville and Atlanta, pretty much almost
We
dead
should
center.
go. I've heard Nashville's
Nashville, bro,
wild.
I love Nashville. I love it. Okay, first thing about me, for everyone else, you should know this. I hate country music. Not a fan. I'll never play country music in my car, on my phone. Does not matter. It never gets played. When I go to Nashville, I'm vibing, bro. Live music is totally different. I do not care what it is. We've talked about this on the podcast before, but just
Yeah.
live music in general. But Nashville is a whole scene in itself. Literally, you walk down Broadway, every single restaurant almost has another band playing. So I can sit and I did this last time I was in Nashville. I was only there for a couple days, right? But while I was there, the
Yeah.
second day before I came home, I took a few hours to just go park downtown. Paid like $20 for parking. That annoyed me. But I just walked and I went into like a restaurant and just sat down, listened to music, vibe for a bit, and then I got up and I'm like, let's go see what's playing next door. Let's just walk around, right? And I've been before for a few days, and like the parties, like I don't know, like bars out there are so much better than here. So I can go and like
Yes.
have fun at
Okay.
like a bar and stuff.
I didn't realize you were that close to Nashville, sir. Like, we
Yeah, dude,
should
I'm
make
two
a trip out
hours.
of that. I've heard Nashville. Okay. Now, like, you said Boston, you said Seattle, and like Nashville. Like, now you got me a little excited. Like, we can go to
Nashville's fun,
Nashville.
bro.
Like, that would be a
Nashville is
trip.
so much fun. I think you'd
Yes,
really enjoy it too.
I would
Just
really
the
enjoy
vibes.
that.
And I
I
have some
know.
friends in
Yes,
Nashville that like know
music.
the like the better spots that aren't super mainstream. And even
Yeah, but
those, like just the bar scene out there too. Like you can go and you can have a really good time.
if I'm not mistaken, there's a lot of historical stuff out there in regards to like music and stuff like that too. Like
Hmm.
that would be the stuff
It's
that
pretty
you know
much
what
the
I mean.
music capital of the US because there's a lot of like record studios, not just country music, but just
And
in general,
that's
like
there
musicians,
you go, sir.
producers, tons
Now
of people
you're
down there.
talking. That would be, and that's exactly what I want to go to Nashville for, right? Like that
Dude,
would
you can
be
easily. I went down there
crazy.
for like a weekend. It was like 2 days, 3 days before with a friend of mine. Got an Airbnb and just hung out, drove around. Like I said, I have a friend up there that shows me around to different spots around like where she lives. But it is just so wild. Like it's so easy to spend that amount of time just screwing around, right?
Yeah, but and that's again, I think that's the whole thing with traveling, right? It's just and it's no different than the conversation, right? You get to see and hear a different experience, a different view, a
Mm-hmm.
different life that you're not living. You know what I mean? And a lot of people especially right are doing the same thing every day. They get in their car, they drive to their job, they see the same scenery, they take the same route
Yeah.
every day. There's no, you know what I mean? It's the same. They get up at the same time, they brush their teeth at the same time, they do the same thing. You know what I mean? Like they get in their car, they pass the same tree at the same time every day. There is no, and I think that's some of the joy that comes to like with traveling and those kind of things, right? Like you get to see, you get to experience, you get to, you know what I mean? Like pretend for a little bit, like what would I do? You know what I mean? What would I be doing?
Yeah.
What would I be
I mean, it's
buying?
just
What
like
would
when I
I?
came up to Canada the first time. Like the simplest stuff, you're like, oh, look at this quaint little butter tart shop, and I'm like, bro, what is this Magic Kingdom? Like this is crazy. And snow, especially like differences in like terrain, weather. You have mountains in some areas, but like just seeing that much snow up there, I'm like, bro, what is? How do you live like this? Because you have snow that's like literally as tall as vehicles on the side. Like cars are trapped in the snow. I'm like, bro, I'd go outside in the morning and my windshield is iced over and I'm pissed off. If I walked outside and my car was literally trapped in an avalanche, I'd be very pissed off. But it's a novelty for me to see it, right? I'm like, wow, that's cool. But then people living there are like, this sucks. I hate having my car trapped in snow by the plow. It's like, this is terrible.
And yeah, I remember we did do that. I had to take you to that because again, like you know what I mean. You come to Toronto and you get to see the city, the hustle, the bustle, and it's not like I remember obviously with my background experience plowing snow, right? Like Toronto got 4 feet of snow, and that was a gong show. Nobody in Toronto knew what to do. Nobody could drive. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember seeing cars on banks stuck because like people had never experienced this kind of and they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
But then you go where we went, right? And you're talking 2 hours north, so almost like 3 hours from Toronto, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
northern country, like yeah,
And
way more snow.
a lake that I can walk on, bro. I'm not Jesus. I shouldn't be able to walk on lakes. Yet here I am, trotting around. That was crazy. And see, we just don't have stuff like that. It's such a norm for people up there to like, bro. I remember there was a van on the lake ice fishing. I'm like, they really had the balls to take their minivan and just drive forward. They knew that was water a month ago. And now they're just like, oh, whatever, we'll just drive on it. Whatever. They're not driving a submarine, bro. It's a minivan. And they're comfortable with it. And that's crazy to me. Because even now, if you think I'm gonna drive my car onto a frozen lake, you've lost your mind. I do not have that much faith in your water. No, sir. I'm not just driving around the ocean.
I highly suggest you watch Ice Road Truckers, and that's all about northern Canada and those guys, and
I've seen it,
literally road
yeah.
melt out of ice, right? Like that
Yeah,
would be, and
it's
again,
crazy
I
that they
think
take a couple of months to take a shortcut, and they're just like, "Yeah, we'll just drive over this lake." What do you mean? You're in a semi truck. You weigh like 100,000 pounds, and you're just like, "Oh, whatever. We just drive over the ice." There's like paint on the ice. They just throw some string on it, and they're like, "Yeah, go this way." A big sign that says "Drive over the lake," or in the summer it says "Do not drive over the lake."
you it's such a norm here that hearing you talk about it like this is hilarious. Like
See, it
it's
just
killing
sounds ridiculous, like at the words, right? But like I said, up there, it's just the norm, and same thing
me.
everywhere, right? But
Yeah, but
that's my favorite part of traveling, is just seeing the differences, like compared to where you're always at every day. Is boring.
yeah, but
I hate
now
living day to day.
picture right, like on TV how you seen it, them traveling, and then like picture you walking on the lake that we went walked on, and now picture driving
Yeah,
on
bro.
something
No
like
shot.
this.
No chance. I don't even understand. No, not happening. I do not have that much faith in anything. I'm not just gonna drive my car onto the
Oh,
lake.
oh my goodness.
Where they're
Okay.
camping. Okay, you gotta be real bored to go camp on a lake.
My goodness.
I
Yeah,
love it though.
that is yeah, it was a good experience. I'm glad you got to experience that.
Dude,
That
and
was
thinking about it, the timing, it's been 2 years since I've been there. Think about that. Does it feel like it's been 2 years since I came up there?
no, it does feel like a lot longer under the circumstances. I think
See, for me,
obviously,
it feels so recent. It feels like I haven't been. It hasn't been that long. It feels like I
oh,
was
it
up
feels
there
like
like
it's been
6 months ago.
no.
Like memory wise, like I can feel like I
Yeah,
remember
but
so much.
we were traveling so much back and forth that the huge stop in it left a
That is
big
true.
massive hole in my heart here. So, we do these lovely conversations now
Yeah.
and
That's the problem. Is they're just memories
pretend
now.
we're
We were
hanging
literally
out for
just
a little bit.
acting like we were actually doing the stuff we're talking about, right? And
Yeah,
now it's
I
just like
know.
a memory. Like, oh, that was cool. You remember back in the day? Like, bro, what? We were doing this all the time. Like within a span of a year.
and
I mean, that one year, 2019, I spent a month in Canada. That's pretty crazy, like percentage wise, because I went up there 2 weeks twice. So I ended up spending
yeah,
a full month in Canada. That's pretty
yeah,
wild.
and think about how many weeks I spent obviously down in the US
Exactly,
between like
right?
traveling and back and forth and whatever. Yeah, but and I was loving that. I enjoyed that, right? That
Hmm.
was I was having a blast like
I
going
think
all
that's
over.
hurt a lot of my like motivation too. I've seen a lot of. I mean, we've talked about this too, pretty in depth, like off stream. But just like I feel so, I don't know, bleh, right? Where I just don't care to do anything because I know it's not really what I want to do. But back then, I was doing stuff so I could do what I really want to do, and it was fun, and I was fine, right?
And
If I had to go
I
work
think
60 hours, I didn't care because I knew next month I'm going to see friends in Texas or
work yeah,
Chicago
work
or
hard,
whatever, right?
play hard, right? And I
But
had
now
no
I'm just
problem working hard
now I
to
hate
play hard.
working hard because I'm not playing at all. So now it's just I don't want to work or and I can't play.
No, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. So, and obviously we went all over the place now, and that's obviously the joy and funs of this, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
those are more the things that obviously we both enjoy doing. And it's funny, we thought we would sit here and argue, and we do agree on a lot of things too,
Yeah,
right?
you just have to bring up the good topics.
Well, and that's I'll
I knew
get
there was a
to
reason we actually talked to each other.
yeah. So there's one more thing, obviously, with the whole freedom convoy and all that that has been a pretty big, interesting story as of recent is the GoFundMe, right? And in order
Mhm.
for them to travel to Ottawa, they had to raise some funds, and they needed to gather some money. So they use this GoFundMe site. They gather $9 million or something like
Jesus Christ.
ridiculous amounts of
See, I
money.
haven't heard anything about this, so this is new to me.
Oh,
What you're
you
saying?
haven't?
Mm-mm.
Oh, sir, I need your opinion on this. I'm so lost
Well,
in
I can
this
tell
because
you right there, that's ridiculous. Just what
yeah,
you just said is crazy to me. I don't understand.
so, but it. like, do you know how many people I know personally that were sharing? Donate what you can, donate $5 or $10, blah blah blah. Like, it was going around massively. I seen tons and tons of it. So they raised $9 million. GoFundMe says you need to come up with a plan in order for you to access the money. The supposedly organizers of this gather a plan together, and and again, I've heard some of the organizers are not good people. I really don't know. I haven't paid that much attention. I did not look
Mm-hmm.
into who these people are or their
Yeah, yeah.
backgrounds or any of these things. I'm just, you hear bits and pieces, and like I said, you're trying to put a story together and come to some sort of conclusion about what is going on here. So they release a million and some odd dollars to them because they have a plan. They're obviously executing the plan, whatever is going on. Then they're in Ottawa. They've been there for a couple days. The government, I think, realizes they're not going to move, so they write to the GoFundMe. And there's been a lot of other things, and that's why I said like fringe movement, white supremacist is another thing that some of these people have been called. There's been lots of crazy terms and name calling to say the least, right? Like, to me,
Yeah.
it seems like some regular people. Obviously, you're gonna have extremes everywhere you go, especially in large crowds, right? There's always gonna be
Yeah.
one or two. You go to an
Especially
expo,
wherever
there's
the
always
media
one or
is
two.
too, right? The
Well,
media draws out people at their worst, I would say, rather than
oh,
their
for
best
sure.
most of
Yeah,
the
but
time.
you put a huge crowd together, right? Like, even our experience going to expos, we always had a blast. We always, you know what I mean? We stayed out of trouble, but there was always one instance or one something of something happening wherever we
Yeah,
were. We
that's
just
true.
weren't involved in it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think a lot of people forget that there's always going to be situations and problems and people, in all this. So, anyways, the truckers aren't leaving. The government writes to the GoFundMe and says they're bad people and you can't keep funding them. So then they pulled their funds. So then there's eight
So
million.
I think, well, the way GoFundMe would work is they would refund it to the donators. But
No, no, yeah, but no, hold on. This is where the story gets even better. So in reality, that's what everybody thought should happen. GoFundMe had issued a thing saying you needed to fill out this form in order to get your donations back. Well, everybody got really perturbed with GoFundMe and said, here's how we beat that. Instead of filling out their form to get a refund, go to your credit card or banking company and issue a chargeback, and that way GoFundMe gets penalized money. And so I think GoFundMe was getting a bunch of those happening, and they finally said, okay, we're going to issue a refund to everybody, and you should see it within so many business days.
so
And that
here's
was
the
the last.
problem with that. That is literal credit card fraud. Like, that's not the way to handle that. If they say you need to fill out this form to get your money, they have reasons. GoFundMe is pretty reputable from what I've seen. There's a lot of good that they've done. So saying that they're going to give the money back, especially if they've already given a portion of the money to the group and at that quantity, I understand that it's a process. And if you are already donating, you clearly don't need the money. You shouldn't be donating money you
So
need.
here's what I want you to do then. Do a little bit of research over the week on this GoFundMe nonsense. And I'm just curious your ideas and opinions towards it. I don't know enough to say one way or the other. I think the fact that $9 million was raised in regards to people, like, from my understanding, trying to fight for freedom, like, it seems like a lot of people want their freedoms and these things to stop and go away, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a rich guy who was like, I'll give you $8 million and it was only one donor. I really don't
No,
know.
I mean, I'm
You
sure
know
there
what
was
I mean?
tons of donations, but I mean, even you look at even $9 million, that's a lot of money. But proportionately, is it? Like, I don't know.
Well, I think it was enough money that the government realized the truckers could stay in Ottawa for a really long time if they were to have access to those funds, and could probably, you know what I mean, do continue to keep this going for a lot longer than they had hoped and or prayed that this would go on, right?
I just
And
think there's a lot
I'm
of problems. I mean, I don't know. There's so many factors at play. Okay. First off, a GoFundMe for something happening in Canada. I could see why the Canadian government wants to shut it down because a U.S. citizens have no right to say what goes on in Canada. They just don't,
And
right?
that was the other thing that was mentioned that some people were up in arms about is international donations to sway our political affairs here in Canada. But I think a lot of people aren't realizing is if it is the truckers and the mandates that they're trying to lift between the borders of US and Canada, like it's directly affecting both our countries, right? And if our country's government is swaying your government to change its, how it works and functions and operates to, implement crazy measures that personally I don't think are working to begin with, right? You know, I can understand why people on that side of the border are upset as well. I do get,
See, I can
you know,
see that, but it plays into the laws and the mandates, regulations. Like we can't have American citizens swaying Canadian regulation because
but
that's a rabbit hole that leads very badly, right? Because then
but
what
my
if you have
government is influencing your government to implement these policies, and that's okay.
I mean at the end of the time that's still at an upper level. Like our government decided to do it, right?
Yeah, but so now the people are saying we don't want this, regardless of government's demands. Governments are supposed to represent the people, and they're implementing rules and measures that the people are not wanting. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Like,
I mean,
I get what
well,
you're
like I said,
saying.
there's so many factors, right, that nobody would be able to actually sit down and know for sure. If they took only Canadian money, it'd be a little bit different. If they opened it up to only Canadian residents, it's
Uh,
still
I
iffy,
think the
right?
problem is
But
GoFundMe is a U.S. Like, I think it's a
exactly
U.S.
right. So you have to
company.
assume that most of that money is from U.S. citizens. I would say
I,
probably
I,
because a we're a lot more politically divided, and b it is a U.S. based company.
yeah, but I
So
think if I seen it shared majority by Canadians, and knowing that you're a U.S. citizen and didn't even know anything about this, I would be curious how many U.S. citizens donated.
yeah, but that's a very small sample size, right? But when you actually look
I
at,
don't,
I
I
mean, if you
don't
look at
disagree with you.
GoFundMe's user base, that would be the best numbers to actually pull from, right? Not just what we've seen, but if you pull how many people donate to GoFundMe and where they're located around the world,
Yeah, but
I would say the
in
majority of
reality,
them are in the U.S.
yeah, but you have more people in the U.S. And again, I can even understand it being a U.S. company, but how many GoFundMe campaigns are ongoing as of right this second? And how many are gaining enough traction in other places that they're not affecting, right? Like I can I get what you're saying, right? If it's a US based company, maybe, and again, more US people with more money, right? Like I could totally
Mm-hmm.
agree that maybe it is this way, but I do start to wonder how many other people in the US even know about this if it's not affecting them. Like you said, it doesn't affect me directly, so why would I know or care?
I agree. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, all the factors there, I just don't know how you would really dive into that. I mean,
Well,
I see
do some
pros and cons
research.
on both sides for sure. Like, I
And
understand supporting a cause that you agree with, and that should be open, right? At the same
well, and
time,
that
you shouldn't be able to influence how other countries run their country because that in itself leads to a very bad situation. To where, let's say, higher ups could donate a ton of money to sway public opinion or whatever regulations in other countries, and that's already happening at a higher level. So you don't need that happening
yeah, but
even more at a
eh,
lower level.
and I was gonna say you do see that because if you think about like even our political system, you know what I mean? Like they raise money and they're getting donations from left, right, and center, from who knows where, all kinds of different, and like, you know what I mean? Like
No, I know,
organizations
and it's
are
the same
donating.
thing, but now instead of going to a direct government that's a lot more trapped and figured out, you're throwing it to people organizing a rally from truckers. So like I think it also plays into who's running it, who's receiving the money, what they're doing, right? So this is a lot more ground floor. So are you going to release $9 million to some guy that organized a trucker rally? Like that seems like a slippery slope, right? And I've heard of stuff. I
Yeah,
know
but
people that have
why?
GoFundmes that have had to prove what they're doing with the money. So it's very. I mean, they're already pretty strict
Yeah,
about
but
it,
so
right?
if they implemented a plan and GoFundMe had already released some of the funds to them, and obviously it's going towards what they said it, like because the government writes them and says they're a bad group, now all of a sudden that whole plan goes out the window.
I
That
mean, if it's
GoFundMe
something happening
already
in Canada, then who do you trust, right? Like, do you trust the people that clearly want the money, or do you trust the Canadian government, which in theory should be looking out for Canadian citizens from an outside source, right? So you don't really have much option or many options of who to actually take their word of. If the government of that country is saying this is going badly, this will hurt our society, then I would say you take their word over the truckers, the group, whoever it is, not just the truckers, but whoever it is that obviously wants the $9 million, right?
see, and I think at that point, again, just knowing me, like if you were the owner of GoFundMe and you had to sit down and make that decision, right? I would be looking at where those donations are coming from personally, and I would be looking at, you know what I mean, how many people specifically donated. Because again, if it's one donor of a massive amount of money that's down in the US that is interfering, like you said, politically with our affairs up in Canada, well, I don't think that's necessarily a good idea.
But where do
If
you draw that line
I
directly,
get,
right?
yes, and that's, we always talk about this, what line in the sand, and where does that line come and how do you
Mm-hmm.
draw that line? I really don't know. But and that's why I'm saying, like, personally, right? You look at how many people are donating small amounts individually. If the majority is from small people within Canada and minuscule donations to get to that amount, it shows you that the majority is wanting this, regardless of what. And I can understand, like you're obviously in a pickle. The Canadian government says this is gonna horribly affect our people, and it's not good. But if the
Mm-hmm.
people are saying this is what we want, right? Like, at what point do you say, like, where do you draw that line?
I think from their perspective, GoFundMe's, whoever had to make that decision, I would say they are almost forced to not oppose governments, right? You can't start a GoFundMe to overthrow a government, right? Like they won't accept that. So I think at some point, if the government says this is bad, right, then
Yeah,
you
but does
have to
that not?
take their word at as close to face value because otherwise you're supporting people that are against the government,
No, and
right?
I get it.
Because
Yeah,
if the
yeah.
government
No, I
says
get
one
it.
thing and you're giving it to them otherwise, you're pretty much just giving a big middle finger to the entire government. And I don't think they can do that. I mean, that's just not a smart
And I think, you know what I mean. Like, the difference I do see here is I don't think people are trying to overthrow the government, or you know what I mean. I think people are
move. No,
just
I
fed
agree,
up
but I think
with.
that's the slippery slope you go down, right? I think if this were to go through and they released all the money, even though the government was saying this is not a good idea, we do not want this, like this will negatively impact us, and then you still send the money, then you get to the point where, okay, it's already been done before in this instance where you go against an entire government and what they're asking you. So now, next time when someone is trying to overthrow a government and there's a GoFundMe, you release that because you've already done it once, right? So it's just that little, like, it gets a little bit higher every time. The
and
line gets a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right.
and I get it, right? And obviously it is a slippery slope. No one knows, which way to go. And I'm sure there's more to this whole situation than I know about, we're told about, right? But
Mm-hmm.
that's why I said do a little bit of digging. I'm definitely curious your ideas and opinions. I should add too, if I'm not mistaken, after GoFundMe issued all this, there was another site. I don't know if it was set up or already running, what the case is, and I don't even know the name of the site to be completely honest. But if I'm not mistaken, they had already raised $1.2 million, right, to start to replace some of those funds in 12 hours.
See, that is a
So
lot of money. I don't know where.
so
I mean, do you have any idea where the money's going? I mean, obviously, you
I
don't have an exact layout, like blueprint of their financials, but
no.
like, do you know
So
what they're trying to accomplish by raising money? Like, why they wanted to raise money?
So, from my understanding, the beginning of it was to raise money to obviously pay for trucks to go to Ottawa and say we've had enough, right? And obviously,
Mm-hmm.
those trucks take a lot of money, fuel, gas. But the thing a lot of people don't realize is these vehicles are meant to be on the road. They can stay on the road for weeks at a time if
Yeah.
fueled. So again, as long as they have money for fuel, right? Like a lot of them have food and fridge and commodities within them because these people live on the road. That's their job,
Yeah.
is to live in their vehicle. So I don't think the government really took that into consideration when all this was going on, that these people could stay there for weeks on end, right? As
Mm-hmm.
long as they had money and fuel. And I think once
I think they
that
probably looked at it more
realization.
as like an income loss, right? I'd be interested to see if any of the money they're trying to raise is going towards replacement income. Since they're not driving, they're not making money. So do you think they're
But
getting
so they
deposits?
did from uh, I did watch a little bit of I should have watched the whole thing. I did watch a little bit of an interview with supposedly some of the leaders of this freedom thing, and that's what they did say. They were obviously, they had no idea that this much money in donations would come in. They did look at obviously trying to reimburse some of the truckers that were out of a job that needed money. But they did say like a lot of it they were going to need like receipts for. Maintenance on vehicles is another thing, and it gets really, really expensive from my understanding.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Obviously,
yeah.
with COVID too, they have a hard time getting parts and pieces and all those things. So that was what they had said the money was going to go towards. What it actually goes towards, again, right? Like
See, I don't even know that I agree with that completely. Replacing, I mean, I don't know. That has a negative impact on the economy. So, like, while regulations you might not agree with, again, there's a level where you either have to accept that your government is trying to do its best to protect its citizens and do what's right for its society, or you need to overthrow the government. Like, those are really the two main options, right? Because,
yeah,
I
but
mean, you can
and
vote them out, but ultimately, if you think your
I
government is really not acting in your best interest, I mean, that's the next step, right?
yeah, but and that's I as much as you know what I mean. I think people are coming to that realization as much as I don't want to say that, right? Like, and I don't think necessarily overthrow the government is the right step, right? Like, obviously, there are things you can vote your members out, you can put in members, and it seems like that's what's happening, right? Like, again, from the little bit that I followed, they threw out the one party leader, they put in another lady. She's supposedly not with this. She's saying she's going to hold people accountable. Again, it's all political theater in my personal opinion, and until people actually are held accountable, I think it's all a joke. But
Mm-hmm.
I am curious, and I don't, like what happens moving forward. What are the next steps? Does the government, start to realize, like, if there is the majority of people, agreeing that this needs to end and this needs to stop, we can't continue living this way, right? Like, when does the government give a little bit, right?
No, I agree, but I think that plays back into like outside sources of income, right? So let's say I donate enough. I'm donating money. My money is going towards a trucker's salary because he's not working. That is
yeah,
directly influencing the Canadian economy. So my donation is now directly like toppling the economy in Canada. Like I could definitely see where that is a problem, right? We can't like
yeah,
they
but
just can't allow it.
so and again, obviously, my circumstances and the only problem, like, time and all this, but my circumstances and situation, right? Like, when I've been without an income for long because of rules and regulations that are completely out of my control, right? Like, I don't understand why it's bad for other people to help someone out in a time of need, right? Like, you know,
because we'd
and
be
obviously,
carrying, we would essentially, not we, but like outside sources could technically topple your economy in that instance. And it wouldn't just be bad for the government, it's directly negatively impacting the communities, right? So if truckers aren't moving stuff, you can't buy stuff like groceries. So if I'm donating money, then
yeah, but
it's
and
almost
that's
directly influencing your ability to survive. And that's a problem if it's coming
and
from outside sources, right?
yeah, but and all of this though from the beginning, right, have directly impacted people's ability to live and thrive and make money and live, right?
I
And
feel like if
so,
anything, it's making it worse because at the end of the day, it's going to take time to change whatever regulations, or they have to find the best of both worlds. I mean,
but the problem is though is and obviously this is my personal opinion about it, right? The government is continuing to put more measures and continuing to do more things instead of easing, right? They see that people have had enough. They've seen that people are fed up. They've seen that people don't want this, and so they double down and do more. And so,
I mean,
like
you have to look at it. I mean, there's a point
as much
where
as you don't want to say overthrow the government, you know what I mean? Like, what else can people do to say we've had enough? We're not willing to comply. We're not willing to do this. We're not. We're done.
I don't know. I mean, I think, in my opinion, you have to have some level of trust to have a functioning society in your government and what they're doing. So while you may not agree with it, like we said before, nobody has the full picture like they do, right?
Yeah.
The people that are implementing these regulations, mandates, whatever they're doing, any law, any rules that they're implementing, they have, I would have to put faith that they have some sort of backing for it, right? Like they look at it and they're saying this is what's best for our society. But if people don't believe that, then the only justifiable step is to replace your government, right? Because there's no medium. Because if you don't think that your government
I
is
think
acting
that
in your best interest, then the only step above that is to replace them,
so,
right? And
and I
I
think
use the word
that's you're
overthrow very
slowly.
lightly. I don't necessarily mean, like trample through the capitals and start a murder spree, right? It's not that extreme, but some sort of replacement has to be done if you truly believe that your government's not looking out for you. But with
And
how little information we truly have about the decisions that are made for all of society, I mean, you have a group of people that are even a few hundred, a few thousand, here at least, making decisions for 300 million people, right? That's a lot of people. So, like, you have to assume, or you should assume, that your government is doing its best. So, while they may make mistakes, like anyone, what they're doing is still in the right direction of the information they have.
I think you're seeing big sway in people used to trust the government. People used to believe the government. And I think under the circumstances and after everything that's gone on, I think you're seeing a majority that are really starting to pay attention to what the government is doing very, very closely. And I think you're starting to see the repercussions of it. You're starting to see more and more, like I said, more and more people not just pay attention, but get involved and want to try and run and do those kind of things. And we've seen a lot of that obviously with our experience in the vape industry and those people, right,
I
trying to
agree,
get
yeah.
right. So what do? You get start to get people in positions of politics and start to play the whole political charade game, right? And so I
But
think
do you
that's what
go
you're
that
kind of
route? Like, do you go the route of slowly getting people in and having the patience for that? Because I think this amplifies the issues, right? So having your economy collapse because you don't believe what the government is doing is not, it's not positively affecting anything, right? Like, what is the
yeah, but
ultimate goal here? If they believe
so
the regulations are important for society, then you take them away and they're right, then you're crippling society a different way, right? And
yeah,
if
but
you're wrong,
and
you're just destroying
I
the
think
economy.
yeah, but and the difference is though is you don't see people out protesting all these other issues like they are for this, right? And I think that's where again you start to see people, right? Look at marijuana, right? Obviously, it took a mass amount of people, and it took them a long time in order to change the rules and regulation. Vaping, I think it's
No,
going to
I
take,
agree, and you still see that
you know,
happening here, right? Like people
and so I
fighting,
think people are
advocating.
realizing that we don't have this long to wait for these mandates to end.
I just don't
People
see
can't
an
go
effective
months
way
without paychecks. People
other than
can't go
patience.
with months without traveling. People can't go months without surgeries. People can't go months without
But what if this is
all
better
these
than the
things.
alternative? That's what I'm saying. With the information we have versus the information they have. What if their decisions are justified based on their information? So they
Yeah,
take all these
well,
regulations
yeah, but
away and everyone feels
justified based
free,
off their,
but then everyone's dying or whatever.
and
Not even
again,
COVID. Like it could
I
be
think
applied
you're
to literally
seeing
anything, right?
I think you're seeing everybody being woken up to the government maybe isn't looking out for the best interests of people, and maybe their financial you know things are a little bit more important than people, and those are the things that I'm just personally seeing more people wake up to,
See, you could be
right?
right when you say the word or when you use the phrase wake up. Like you could very well could be right. People could be waking up, but it could also be a matter of people are spreading misinformation at an alarming rate. Like we've talked about before, they're getting a larger following because of social media and how the media
Yeah,
has
but
transitioned.
misinformation is only what you deem misinformation, right? Like, okay, you disagree with that person's views and ideas or opinions. Why do you disagree with them though?
At the end of
What
the day,
what
someone is
about
right
them?
and someone is wrong. I mean, that's just
Yeah,
how
but
it is, right? With these regulations, they're either good or they're bad. There's the only two options, right? There's not in the middle. So either the government's decision is good for society or it's bad. And we don't have that information. But like I said, not even talking about
I think you're
regulations for
starting to
COVID.
see. I think you're starting to see more of that information come to public's view, and I think that's why you're getting some of the responses you're getting.
But people can also gain traction for saying anything almost. So while they may be right, they also may be wrong. You have to look at that possibility as well. So
I'm not.
like
Yeah,
with
but
your views, it seems like they're wrong. So let's say you got a big following, but let's say you ended up being wrong. That would very much hurt society. These people, like these truckers, in this one instance, let's say they got the money, they stayed there, the economy suffers, and let's say they're wrong, right? If they're right, then they're doing the right thing. If they're wrong, then it's hurting society, right? But can you trust
and what if
them
the government's
over?
wrong?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm getting at. But who has more information to go off of? That's what I'm saying. You have to have some level of trust in somebody. You're either trusting these people or you're trusting your entire government.
And I think that's where the government is lost, right? That nobody trusts the government anymore. Seeing that play out in society.
And I think that's a lot of places, not necessarily just here or Canada. I think,
Yeah,
but that's again with social media and how much you can gain traction. I mean, you can post a TikTok about something, saying random words, and get millions of people that see it, follow it, like it, start getting behind you, right, for anything.
what
And that can
what
be
causes?
negative also. I'm not saying it's
Yeah,
always
but what
negative.
causes those things to go viral?
I think a lot of
What
time,
causes those things that people are deeming misinformation to go viral? Why are those the things that are going viral?
I mean, I think as times change, more things become more relatable. So I think you take a little piece of information that might be right, and then you can add in a bunch of other stuff. I mean, we've talked about this before about how a cult is formed, right? And I hate going back to it every time, like with COVID and everything, but not just
Yeah,
COVID.
but
It's
and
anything. You
the
take
difference,
one little thing.
but the difference between a cult and what's happening now is you have a small fringe minority versus a large majority,
I'm
right?
just using it as a metaphor, right? It's
Yeah,
not
and
necessarily
yeah, but the problem
correlating
is,
one to one, but with that metaphor, I'm just saying you can take one piece of information and add a bunch of lies onto it, and people will pick up on that one piece, believe it as truth, and all the things they don't know, they'll assume are true because they do know that one thing, right? So if I said to you a piece of information, if I said to a random person out there, smoking is bad, and then I gave them a bunch of false vaping information, that's bad, right? You would agree. But they started following it. They started believing it. It's the same thing with anything. I'm not saying that's what's happening in this situation with truckers. They very well could be right. I don't know. But I have to have some sort of blind faith that the government and its resources and information it has are doing what it deems best for society. Because
and
otherwise, society is just going to crumble, right? And I mean, I
I,
can believe society is crumbling, but that doesn't help me either, right? because
No,
by the
no.
time it gets rebuilt into a way that would benefit, if it is crumbling and they're not looking out for us, would be beyond my lifetime.
Well, see, and like it's just I do agree with you, and like I said, I think as more information comes to light, we're going to see more of the story. I do hope you look into it a little bit. I will, I guess, kind of end on this, right? And this is why I think as more information comes out, the story starts to change, right? The media puts out that it's a small fringe minority group with radical views and people doing extreme things that shouldn't be happening here in Canada. And the majority, from what you've seen in the pictures that were shared, it didn't look good as to what was going on.
Yeah.
So then you take and it's funny. It took one video on Twitter that was shared that shows a guy holding one of those flags that people are really don't like, and is one of those ones that people get all upset about. And what happens? The crowd tells him, "Sir, you're not welcome here. We don't want that here. This is not okay. You need to leave. Take that and go." And that's the
Yeah.
crowd, right? And again, and I think that's what you're starting to see happen on a mass scale. The crowd is saying, regardless of how the media is spinning the story, here's the truth to the situation. That's done by a regular Joe Blow on the ground. That shows that the majority of people are not okay with that, regardless of how the media is trying to spin the story. Because there's the
I mean,
crowd telling the fringe minority that the media is telling you which it is to 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 get out. And
I
so it
think
kind of debunks the story and the narrative, including the government, because you have to remember our prime minister came out and said it's a fringe minority and these people are crazy and white. Like, he said these things. These are
yeah.
racist people with racist ideas. Like, he said some pretty obscure, absurd things,
Hmm.
right? Like, absolutely outrageous. Like, I still, yeah, we should clip that and play that the next time, because that
Yeah.
is. But
I don't know. I
I
mean, like
think,
I've said, this is why I've said this a dozen times before. Well, I've gotten to the point where I just don't trust anything at face value. I don't trust what they're saying. I definitely don't trust what the media's saying. Like, I just don't have the information. And while I don't have the information, I just don't care. Like, genuinely, it seems super selfish, and it is. And I'll admit, I'll be
you
the
are,
first person to admit that.
you
I
are.
just don't care. Like, it just isn't big enough for me to care. Like, it's too much of my energy and time and brain power to put into this for it to. I'm not gonna make a change. I'm not that person. Some people might be that person, right? These people out rallying and organizing these movements might be the people that are changing society. All power to them. I support the people that change society for the better, right? I support that. But I am not that person. And I am admittedly 100% will tell you I am not the right person for that. And being so, I just don't care enough. Like, I would rather focus my time and the life I do have on things I do want to pursue versus societal change.
Well, and obviously, like I said, in my circumstances and situation, right, it's directly affected and impacted me and my livelihood and my ability to live. So, I have paid a little bit of attention, right? And I was, like I said, I was definitely kind of happy that we had kind of beat the what do you call it, the topic of today, you know what I mean, with our discussion last week. So I'm trying to
Mm.
stay ahead a little bit. Again, I am curious how this ends up playing out. I do implore you to do a little bit
No,
of
I
digging,
definitely will look
and
into it and see
I'm
what I can
curious
find.
your ideas and opinions and what you find out. And right, like I said, like, I don't know for sure what's going on. I do think the majority of this needs to end. Personally, like, as long as people aren't out there, causing harm and hurting people, right? Like, I do think they should be out there protesting and should be allowed to say whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and again, I
Yeah.
think I think even those people with extreme crazy ideas, even if you let them speak, I think society is going to shut them down, and I think society as a whole, right, is a good thing, and the majority of people want to do good, right? And I don't think that everybody is out there trying to cause harm for those things, right?
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree that most people, like the majority of people, want what's best for society. I think that's a pretty good portion to wrap up
That buddy, we
for
killed it.
our Spotify and YouTube listeners, viewers.
Amazing. I
We
should go
can.
watch on YouTube actually. I should
You
check
need
out
to.
their channel there.
You need
YouTube.
to.
Yes,
It will
YouTube.
be up
YouTube.
either tonight or tomorrow. We'll see how exporting feels tonight. Sometimes my computer doesn't want to export it. Sometimes it does. It'll be up tomorrow for sure. So we love all the audio listeners, all the YouTube watchers, and we can transition into our Twitch exclusive where we interact
Beautiful.
with the chat. Oh, wrong tab. But thank everyone who does listen and everyone that does watch. And you can all catch it tomorrow. Spotify, YouTube, every platform.
And I guess we'll have to put out a little heads up on what time we're gonna do our stream next week.
We are, yeah. We'll
According.
plan. We'll plan like a week ahead. So
Okay.
I don't know when exactly we'll do it, but whenever we do narrow it down to an exact time, we can do it the week after that. Does that make sense? That way we can give everyone who's listening, watching that
Okay. Okay.
week.
So we'll do Sunday at 7 next week, and then
Yeah, we'll be here
following
Sunday.
week.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll let y'all know. We'll be here. We'll figure it out. But that's a wrap for Spotify and YouTube.
Okay. Peace.
Bye bye, guys.